welcome back to our final segment here in Studio 5 of European Development Days. Before we go to the final closing session in Studio 1, stay tuned because I'm going to be talking to Ricardo Pineda, who you saw him earlier on the high-level panel that we had at the beginning of transboundary watersheds. Ricardo Pineda, he is an activist. He is very active with NGOs in Honduras. Honduras, as many of you know, is one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere. It is struggling with drought, with all kinds of issues of crime and so forth. And there has been an uptick in migration in the last few years up north to the U.S. How can this be addressed? How can this be addressed not only from an international standpoint, but locally on the ground? And that is what Ricardo Pineda has been doing. Ricardo, welcome back, because I did have this discussion with you in preparing for this European Development Days. And it was quite inspiring to hear that story of Jose and in fighting pollution along that river in Guatemala. Can you add a little bit more to that mix so that we can maybe add a more detail in how you're inspiring people to get involved and what we need from an international standpoint to be able to expand on that?
Thank you, Chris. So just like you were saying, there's a lot to be done in these countries, right? Especially developing countries. So one of the biggest things that we had to do was get together as youth. Hello?
Yep, hear you. Yep, we're connected. Go ahead.
So one of the things that we had to do was to get together as youth and to actually think collaboratively on what would be the best ways to collaborate or best ways to get Honduras forward from all of these issues that in the end are so interconnected, right? Climate change, and Honduras is one of the most climate vulnerable countries. We also have issues with transboundary waters. We have issues with droughts and with floods at the same time, hurricanes. And that is when we decided as youth to get together as young engineers, as young policymakers and policy advisors to start a project of research to establish the foundations of a national decarbonization plan. Now, normally a national decarbonization plan is not something that you would just, get together with your friends and do in a couple of weeks, right? It's something big. It normally requires expertise. However, we've been working with so much youth to actually get research into what is the best and science-based ways to get these problems solved. How can we actually develop and achieve economical growth for the country, and how can we do it in a sustainable manner that will ensure the well-being for the future generations?
So let me get this right.
That is pretty much a general overview.
What sort of solutions are you talking about for decarbonization?
So we're speaking about the decarbonization of 7 sectors, which is a lot. We're talking about solutions in energy, renewables, also transport, electromobility. We're also speaking about hydrogen. We're speaking about cities, how to make them more sustainable. On waste management specifically, we're talking about how we can reduce the weight that is coming from other countries and specifically on transboundary watersheds, because it's also having a high economic impact on the country. And we're also looking at forests specifically and agriculture.
Yeah, and not only are you saying what we should do, but you're doing it on the ground. Give us another example of how you're making this happen on the ground and how perhaps we can help to expand on that.
So one of the biggest things that got us, moving was creating basically a research group out of young students and actually putting ourselves and linking to other universities and just developing these research projects that are innovative, that are preparing big data and other types of use towards finding the best solutions for the country. So some of the things that we have found, for example, is how to stop waste from coming from other countries, specifically through rivers. That has been something that has affected the country a lot. And one of the other things that we're looking at is how do we pair transboundary watersheds with climate change? And specifically, we find that climate adaptation is something that should be in the mix of a long-term decarbonization plan. Even though we're talking about reducing emissions, we also need to speak about the need for adapting to climate change, as we are the most climate vulnerable country, and we need more action towards these efforts.
What kind of receptivity are you getting from local people? How are you mobilizing them? Or are they just saying, oh, you guys are just a bunch of young guys, you don't know what you're talking about? I think, how are you persuading them to get involved?
first, we got a lot of looks. I have to admit it, right? What are these guys doing?
There you go.
Who do they think they are? We weren't really on the policy making sphere of Honduras by when
But
we
you
started.
obviously impressed them somehow.
And fortunately, we've been having a lot of support from the international cooperation community. There's interest on expanding youth involvement on decarbonization in other countries. And I believe that if we're speaking for a long-term development plan for 2050, from 30 years from now, of course we need the youth. We're talking about our own future, right? So we're slowly getting there. We're about to launch with some European partners the first team to assemble the national decarbonization plan. But our current goal right now is to actually incentivize research and development for future generations, for a decarbonization plan that is not only a document, but that it will also follow up on solutions for climate adaptations, for transboundary watersheds, and of course for the economic development of Honduras.
Can you tell us more about how you're working with academia? I guess not only in Honduras, but I think elsewhere, right?
Yes, of course. So what we did, we had a program to outreach to different great universities that are renowned internationally. And we've signed alliances with 10 universities who are committed to SDGs and who are now guiding young Honduran researchers just like me and just like 30 other young students from here that are now getting involved, dedicating their extra time after classes, after school, to getting some research projects done, specifically on how to tackle many of the issues in the sectors that we had. So as students, to do it by ourselves, it would be almost impossible, right? We do need guidance. We are not PhDs. We are not,
Indeed.
At the end of the day, we do need that support. And fortunately, we've been getting it a lot from academia internationally.
So how do people get involved with you? I mean, how do they contact you? Are you in an organization? Can you give us a website or something like that?
Yes, we founded an organization. It's called Sustenta Honduras. It's the first youth-led climate action NGO in the country. So please look for us. Please share our message, because as researchers from a developing country, we do need that support. We do need that extra attention towards our work. We need more ways to actually collaborate and to actually potentiate some of the research efforts that we're going, so that we can apply them to Honduras and apply them for the development. Because something that many people don't know, and I'll just mention it very quickly, is that last year we had not one but two Category 5 hurricane striking us in Honduras in a matter of less than 2 weeks, in almost 10 days. So our economic development, it was already hindered by the COVID pandemic, but then two Category 5 hurricanes are definitely, a big setback. And if we're expecting these things to happen every 5 or every 10 years, then simply our economic model for Honduras is not sustainable. It's not going to work, right? So we need to think on ways on how we can adapt to climate change, how we can actually live with what is going to come through. And one of the biggest ways to actually find those solutions is through research, right?
Okay, and
through
tell us
science-based approaches.
And tell us now, this is European Development Days, so tell the people listening how they can help you. What do you need?
What we need, especially from the development community, is more programs, more projects directly focused to youth-led projects. Because of course, when we see a consultation or a place where we could apply for research funds, etc., the first thing that we see is that, we're asking for 10 years or 20 years of experience, and how can I have that as a youth-led organization, right?
Indeed.
So we need more efforts focused to youth-led projects, so that we can actually transform and create capacities and create local expertise in countries like Honduras towards the development of our own communities.
And you said during the high-level panel that you think that youth should be more there at the table in making decisions. How physically, how concretely do you mean by that? How should you be part of that decision making?
I mean, as concretely as possible. That what happens a lot of times with youth is that many times we're only there for the picture. Many times we're only there, for a little consultation, and then our opinions get written down, but they don't really end up on the policy document. They just check that off the list, and then that was the youth involvement part. And no, we actually want to be there We want to have a vote. We want to have a seat on the table. I think that the youth is smart. The youth is very academically driven. We are all based in science. You have seen the climate movement worldwide, and we need to be part of the decision making. We need to have a vote, and we need to be there taking decisions that in the end will impact our own future.
I might mention, Ricardo, that you're just one of a number of young leaders that European Development Days has singled out and had you and the others speak. I've spoken with many of them actually in preparation for European Development Days. I think it's a great angle to add, and obviously people like yourself help to persuade, I think, the policymakers that you do have a role to play. So Ricardo, thank you so much, very much, and good luck with expanding on your efforts in Honduras. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Goodbye.
Goodbye now. And thanks to all of you for listening to this Transboundary Watersheds here in Studio 5. That wraps it up. We talked all kinds of angles, from digital to things on the ground, what we're doing on the ground there, and trying to develop these relations between the European Union, between internationals and people on the ground in the developing countries. So I thought this was quite a fruitful discussion from all different kinds of angles. Now, stay tuned, because we will have the closing session in Studio 1, and I might tease a little bit the fact that you will be hearing about priorities for biodiversity, looking ahead to the Biodiversity Summit in China in October, where people are hoping that there could be perhaps a Paris-style, as we did Paris-style climate agreement, do a agreement on biodiversity, and perhaps these priorities could help to push that ahead. So thanks very much for watching, and thanks for watching EDD, European Development Days. I'm Chris Burns.